There's a particular episode of the classic Nickelodeon show The Adventures of Pete and Pete called Hard Day's Pete. Now, if you remember the premise of this show, there are two brothers, Big Pete and Little Pete. Big Pete's more your conventional kid. Little Pete, among other things, has his own personal superhero and a mermaid tattoo on his forearm. He also has his own radio station broadcasting out of his basement.
W-A-R-T, Ward Radio, Wellsville.
But as the episode tells us, Little Pete doesn't have time for music. His broadcast is strictly news, some interviews, and he shouts down any caller who dares request a song, especially Marmalade Cream.
Hey dude, can you play Marmalade Cream? It's my favorite song.
And he would always say the same thing.
Get a life, jerkweed.
Then one day, while riding his bike to school, he comes across a garage band. Now, it's very much a late October, early November morning in Wellsville. These guys are playing with the door open for some reason, and that reason is to advance our plot. Little Pete stops his bike for a minute, checks out the scene, absorbs the sound, and pedals the rest of the way to school. Singing the chorus the whole way, he soon finds he can't get it out of his head. This is the early 90s, so I'm not sure the term earworm has been invented, but it's an earworm, and Pete realizes he finally has a favorite song. He goes back to that house, that garage, the next day, and there's nobody there. Did he imagine it? Whatever the answer, he can't lose his favorite song. So he takes to the airwaves. He asks, does anybody else know it? When that doesn't work, he assembles a band, comprised of a friend who somehow has mutton chops at like age 11, the local meter reader, Mel, who's played by Marshall Crenshaw of Someday, Someway fame, and his math teacher, Miss Fingerwood, who's played by folk singer Sid Straw. Now, Pete and Pete was great with music cameos. Michael Stipe, Iggy Pop, Debbie Harry, the list goes on. But they try to recreate the song from Pete's memory and bring it back to life. It's interesting to think that for the last 30 years, we've gone from using our brains to index this information to completely relying on the internet. Shazam has been around for a while. There was a time it was so popular, there was a show called Beat Shazam on Fox. I looked it up on Wikipedia. Wait a minute. That show is still on. That's the point. There's an app like Shazam which can tell you what song is playing, or SoundHound, which I recently just learned about. And we'll talk about that later, but you can use that to dictate a song into your phone and get a result. The infrastructure, the internet, is such that you can find almost anything. Facebook groups, Reddit threads, lyrics websites. I think I've mentioned the spiral-bound notebook I kept, where I would scrawl down the words to songs I heard on the radio or on TV. Post-1997, when we got the internet, I just boot up the computer and look it up. Some of these lyrics websites were pretty good, like the original hip-hop lyrics archive. Others were kind of trash, and in the spirit of the early internet, a good majority of them were making money off someone else's work. Lyrics websites actually became something of a crusade for our friend David Lowery of Cracker, who argued the artist should be getting something with all these people like me searching and clicking through their compositions. Once the music industry got involved and made the websites pay up, Lowery was quoted as earning hundreds of dollars. But then there's this ultimate internet rabbit hole. I recently got hip to this episode of the Reply All podcast called The Case of the Missing Hit. Maybe I've been living under a rock. I wasn't familiar with Reply All. But the premise seems to be, at least for some episodes, a listener writes in with a burning question, and the hosts use creative means to track down an answer. In this case, a listener's dealing with an earworm, a song he used to hear all the time while growing up in Flagstaff, Arizona in the 90s. He knows the melody, some of the lyrics, even chunks of the guitar solo. But the internet can't seem to identify any of it, except for this one guy in a guitar forum from Trinidad and Tobago, and he's not talking. Is the listener crazy? Did he make the song up? Is it an amalgamation of songs, a theory that gains traction when you consider the verses are said to sound like Bare Naked Ladies, and the chorus like U2? He writes into the show. He even takes the time to record himself singing the song and doing the guitar parts and an apparent flute intro a cappella. The host's approach to solving this riddle is to hire a band to produce a more authentic recording of the song from the listener's memory and put it into SoundHound. When even that doesn't work, he goes around to music critics, radio personnel, producers, all in an attempt to figure it out. What follows is a story of building suspense that's surprisingly educational. It made me wonder if the Reply All guys were inspired by Hard Day's Pete. And the fact that the song probably originated from a time when we had the internet makes the inability to find it particularly unique. A friend of mine said, if there's another Robert Johnson out there from the 1930s that we never heard, I'd believe that. But it's rare for something from the last 30 years, the last 50 years, to lack a virtual home. If it was released on physical media, somebody's championed the music, indexed it online, even if it's some YouTube video that has a couple clicks and a random dude in the comments who remembers it back from growing up. Was this mystery song maybe not a hit and the listener just thinks it was? Like some local band had a DJ friend that played their stuff a bunch of times on the radio. Or is it some elaborate scheme by the listener to have someone record a song for him? The mind goes lots of places over the course of the episode. Spotify says it's got over 1 million listens, and I can see why. The internet was supposed to make our lives easier, and in a lot of ways it has. I mean, think about all the songs you've looked up, downloaded, learned more about the band on Wikipedia. We've also jumbled our brains, which for centuries have used the same internal metronome, with stuff we never would have cared about 30, 50, 100, 250 years ago. But trying to figure out an earworm? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Paul Revere had a song stuck in his head during his midnight ride. And in that sense, we've all got something in common. With Little Pete, that guy from Flagstaff, Arizona, and maybe some of the preeminent figures in history. Music by Ceramic. If you're listening in the summer of 2026, Cracked Rearview will be back the week after Labor Day. In the meantime, check out Cracked Rearview Podcast on Instagram or Facebook for some cool stuff I've been working on. I'm Sean Silver.